Welcome to another edition of the Let's Talk About Chess podcast. In episode number 16, I talked to Jeroen van den Berg, the tournament director of the Tata Steel Chess Tournament in Wijk aan Zee. He told me some great stories about the event. The Wimbledon of Chess, as the tournament in Wijk aan Zee is called, attracts the very best chess grandmasters in the world, and in non-COVID times, thousands of amateur players and visitors. During its 83 years of history, the Tata Steel Chess Tournament has attracted some of the biggest names in chess history. In this series, the Wijk aan Zee Storytellers, you can hear some legends of the game telling stories about the greatest chess tournament in the world. I am your host Erik van der Reem. Relax and enjoy the show. Welcome listeners. My next guest in the Wijk aan Zee Stories won the tournament no less than 5 times, and he played how many games? 247 games played in Wijk aan Zee. Welcome to this episode, Vishy Anand.
Yeah, thanks, Erik.
Hi.
Good to be here.
Yeah, you won the event 5 times. You played 247 games. Do you realize that's the highest number of games played by a non-Dutchman?
Well, yes. Of course, I think Van der Weel is the all-time record for participation. But yes, non-Dutchman, I could well be.
Yeah, okay. Okay, but
I mean in the
highest group. Van der Weel did play 28 tournaments in Wijk aan Zee. And he played, but he didn't play all the games in the A group, which you did, of course. And the other player with the highest number of games in the A group is Luc van Wely and Donner also. So they are.
Okay.
And you're 247.
But Magnus must be quite close, right? Already.
Magnus, yeah. Well, if he goes on like this, I don't know how many games he played in.
No,
total.
The point is he's. I think from 2003 he's played every single year.
Yeah, that's quite amazing. Yeah, 70. And you played 20 tournaments, which means that you stayed more than a year of your life in Wijk aan Zee. What comes to mind?
Yes.
What comes to mind to Wijk aan Zee? When I say Wijk aan Zee, what comes to mind first?
What can I say? Well, I guess first of all, you think of winter because you say a whole year, but it's 1 year of winter. And but I still remember the first year. It was, these were totally different times, of course. So I was going to come from Hamburg by train and come to Wijk aan Zee. Come to Amsterdam station. Then I thought, well, it would be nice to. I had Albert Toby. I had connected to them a while back, so I wrote to him saying, or I think I called him and said, by any chance, will you be there when I'm in Amsterdam? He said, oh, I'll come and meet you. So I called him when I got on the train. You have to visualize. No internet to search for train connections, no messaging from your mobile phone when you're coming and so on. Everything had to be coordinated before. But But anyway, I was very happy that he would help me get on the way. So he met me at the train station. It took a while to find each other. And then we went to his flat, left the luggage, and then No, I think in fact we went straight we decided to go to an Indian restaurant because I'd arrived in the evening. Mm-hmm. So we went to a nice Indian restaurant there and then went to his flat. I stayed there overnight in his flat. And the next morning he put me on a train to Wijk aan Zee. And I had connected to the organizer. So I went to the, what was it? I think it's Kennemerton Hotel. Mm-hmm. Well, it's no longer a hotel. It was the hotel for the first 2 years. Then by the time I played again, we had moved to the Klukte. Mm-hmm. So the first 2 times it was there. And It was a very nice hotel, probably the closest to the tournament hall, because Tarantella is right next to it. And you just, I've forgotten already when Spar came, but I went to the tournament hall very easily. And that was one of the best years. I mean, I don't remember it being cold. It was one of the warmer years, so very easy for me to acclimatize. And it was a good tournament. I remember I had my usual bumpy ride. I won 2 games, then lost a game, then up and down, up and down. But somehow, in the end, I even found myself surprisingly in first place. Yes. Because there were 4 of us, so it's a kind of group tie.
Yeah.
But still a very nice result. And for me, it was a big honor. I remember meeting everyone so I was in Brussels in April 88 for the Swift tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing commentary. And then I remember Mr. Bakker, I think. And they came and gave me the invitation for Wijk aan Zee the next year. Okay. And that was very nice to play in. Well, it was then Hohovens. I was very excited to accept the invitation, and that was it.
Yeah, we're talking about the year 1989. Yeah, that was your debut.
89. So 88 April was when they gave me my invite, and then 89 I got to play.
So we're talking about 89, and you won the tournament with Sachs, Ripley, and Nikolic, scoring 7.5 points, which is not that much actually. when you compare it to the late scores you scored later, for example, you scored 8 or 9 or 9.5 points.
Well, but my absolute record was 9.5, which I scored in
99.
99. Mm-hmm. I think in terms of points scored, that's my maximum. But that was only good enough for second, because Kasparov actually scored +7, though I was +6. And otherwise, my best score was maybe +4.
Okay. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I looked up a tournament report from 1989 here from in New Chess by Dirk-Jan ten Geuzendam, and I just want to read a line here from your first game in the first round. So it's your debut in Wijk aan Zee. It says, "Opening rounds can be cautious affairs, but with Vishy around, things were different. The Indian grandmaster tends to spend less time on his move than it takes to pronounce his full name, and while most journalists were still sipping their first cup of coffee, he sat down to demonstrate the crucial moments of his win at dazzling speed." Can you remember that one? How fast you were in the first round? Because it made quite an impression, obviously.
Yeah, but it was René Kuyff, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Well, he walked into something in the Ponziani. I mean, it's literally, I could just play G5, F5, F4, and his queen got trapped and he had to resign. Of course, I played that very fast. But yes, it was nice. I didn't look a gift horse in the mouth. I mean, I just took it. It was, he just blundered, but yes, I finished very fast. I might add, just as long as it takes to pronounce Dirk-Jan's full name as well. But,
can you already? Just Dirk-Jan, ten Geuzendam.
Well, yes, Dirk-Jan ten Geuzendam. Obviously, by now I can say it reasonably well, but I don't know if I was that quick either then.
But yeah.
Yes, I remember that round, and then I beat. Was it Kirill Georgiev in the second? I think it was Kirill Georgiev, and then it felt like a very good start. But then no, maybe not Kirill Georgiev. That must have been later. I must have had white in the second game. I don't know, maybe 20 miles or something. And I can look it up, but anyway.
Yeah, sure.
So the third round, I lost totally ridiculous game to Cheshkovsky. And so my level also was fluctuating a lot in those days in games, because preparation and all was much more chaotic. Yeah. And it was quite hit and miss. So very quickly I settled to a very uneven tournament. But I remember being able to walk around a lot, go to Amsterdam many times. Funnily enough, in those days, I used to go to Amsterdam at the drop of a hat. Nowadays, I really think about whether I want to go, because it was just comfortable in Wijk aan Zee. But back then I would, whenever I was bored, I would just get up, because there was not much preparation to do in those days. Nowadays you spend much more time preparing. But in those days, there was not much preparation to do. You could read and go for walks, watch TV. I think it's already a couple of years that I don't even switch on the TV in Wijk aan Zee.
Okay.
Because we're all used to just finding what you want in the internet, right?
Yeah, sure.
But anyway, so our habits was totally different. Preparation was different. We had these, of course, books and stuff. I did have a computer, but they were totally different times. But now when I think about it, of course, I feel a lot of nostalgia for that. It was, and like I said, I would pop over to Amsterdam, the drop of a hat. So
on a free day, then you would go.
No, on every day after a round, if you finished early enough, you just thought, well, let's go to Amsterdam and spin around and come back.
Okay.
And you thought nothing of it. I wonder why I don't do it these days, but I don't do it so much now.
Okay. Well, okay. Maybe at that time you played much faster then. Maybe you had some more time to go out and
yes, that's also much faster. And there was simply less work to do. Nowadays you have to, at least I feel I need to revise this and that. And so you need some time. And if you enjoy yourself too much, then that means you feel very confident in your preparation and you don't need to refresh anything.
But what else is there to do in Wijk aan Zee? Wijk aan Zee is the perfect place for social distancing, isn't it?
In a way, yes. I mean, there are some streets where obviously a lot of people live. And so one street behind or one street to the side of Tarantella is actually a fair residential area. But if you don't know anyone, then you can't really talk, and they stay to themselves. The other thing I remember, of course, in Wijk aan Zee was that people just did not close their curtains. It's a very Dutch thing, but they just don't close their curtains. They leave everything open inside. And it's quite shocking from other cultures, but anyway, they just leave everything open. And I enjoyed that because you always had the hope that someone was dressing or something like that.
Okay.
No, it was it's typically Dutch, of course. Just very frank, and they just leave their curtains open.
Yeah.
Nothing to hide.
Nothing to hide. That's right. Yeah. You won a couple of more tournaments, 1994, 1998, which was immediately after you played in Groningen and Lausanne, right? 1989.
Yes. Well, 94 was a candidates match.
Yeah.
So yes, but then we stayed in De Kloekte, and I remember that year the weather was not so bad. But 2 years later, in 96, at that point it was one of the coldest years, and we had these. I don't know. They kept saying -40 wind chill and what have you. So it was windy and unbelievably cold, icy everywhere. And then we were in De Kloekte, and De Kloekte had this habit of turning off the heaters during the day because, why waste energy when the players are not there and so on. So we had to come back and ask them to turn it on. And De Kloekte has now become a Michelin restaurant. I was quite surprised. I thought that man had sold up and closed, but somehow it's now become a Michelin restaurant. I don't know if it's a hotel anymore. But then in 1998, again, we stayed there right after Groningen and Lausanne. It's literally like it's a bed and B&B, yeah? So we stayed there because that's how small the town was. We didn't know any hotels. Yeah. And then Piquet, the next year, or maybe that year, Jeroen Piquet told me, it's strange. All you guys keep going to De Kloekte. Why? It's amazing that none of you insisted on Zeedown. And then we realized, Zeedown's a nice, proper hotel. We can actually stay there. So, of course, we were all delighted. Because it had a full restaurant, and De Kloekte only had breakfast and I think maybe dinner, I forgot. So, or sandwiches, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But after 99, I stayed in Zeedown till last year. And last year, Jeroen said you should try Hogedoen. And Hogedoen was, for me, always somewhat... a kind of party hotel. It's just up there, and you heard that there was some You'd hear loud noise sometimes, but no, they've actually upgraded it, and it's a very, very good hotel as well. So last year I stayed there. A couple of guys have been staying in Hoggadon for 3-4 years now, but I was very late to the party.
Yeah, I think it's also...
then for many years, especially in this century, I would just go straight to Zaydown, almost always the same room, 401 or 402 or something, and then boom, I'm in there. So
yeah, that's kind of the end of the world, isn't it? If you go to Wijk aan Zee, you go to Zaydown, and that's it. Actually,
yes, and there's the sea. So, and what else do I remember? The story I remember from the first year is that it may have been a made-up story, even, that you go to the hotel and then you say, sorry, which direction is to the sea? And they say there, and you go up and it's the sea, and you think, oh my God, we're below sea level. But that's nice. And in most of the years, like 2003, 4, all those years that I played then, my routine was always on the rest days to walk to Beverwijk. So Aruna sometimes would walk, but a couple of times she said, no, I'll take the bus, I'll meet you there. And so I would walk, because, a good walk, it's 4-5 kilometers. I don't know what it is, but anyway, I'd walk to Beverwijk, meet her there, and then we'd have dinner somewhere, then go walk around a bit and come back.
Mm-hmm.
But Amsterdam was getting less and less frequent. In 98, 99, I was still going there quite often. But then slowly you started thinking, well, do you really need to go all the way there? So, so it was nice to play the Levitov tournament last year, because then I was finally in proper Amsterdam again. Of course, in those days, there were these very nice VSB tournaments in Amsterdam.
Mm-hmm.
I think, for me, some of the most enjoyable tournaments, because VSB also was incredibly good. Interpolis was very nice as well. I mean, Tilburg is a nice big town, but I can say you really have the small town feel. And I think what Kasparov said about Linares could even apply to, I can say, somehow it's a cozy little world where we all meet up, and then it's a chess town for a month, and then you leave.
Yeah, there's also very important the social aspect of the in Wijk aan Zee, of course, of the tournament. You meet all kinds of chess players all over the place in different restaurants. Yeah, you can go to Tarantella. It's just the best. Well, it's the only Italian restaurant in Wijk aan Zee, of course, and then you can just sit next to Vishy Anand, or to another top player, and you go to have a beer in another place, and then you meet Topalov or somebody else, and it's really nice for chess players, of course.
Yes, and again, in the earlier years, you would sit in, you walk by these places, and there are actually fans sitting and playing a game of chess afterwards. Somehow, as I mean, if you're playing in the A or B group or whatever, you tend to think, well, if I have to discuss something about the game, I'll just discuss it without a board. But there are these people, and they sit down and they analyze their stuff. I played this in the teen camp or whatever, and then they're happily analyzing. But it's a very nice atmosphere. That for a month it feels like a chess town, and that is beautiful, I think.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, you played, of course, some fantastic games in Wijk aan Zee, some of your best games, perhaps. Which one what is your most memorable game, or most remarkable game, or the game that you're really fond of, thinking back?
Well, Aronian would have to be one of them. Topalov in 98, for sure. 99, I played some very nice wins, because I'm in my +6. That was a year. 2003 and 4, I had some nice games with Alexei Shirov, with Barev. Many of them made my book. 2008 had a couple of 3 wins. That was not a very high scoring year. So +2, and +3 was the winning score. 2006 and 7, I struggled a bit, but I had a nice win in 2006 against Karyakin.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, 2006 I didn't struggle. I won the tournament, but 2007. So 2006 was a very good year again for games.
Yeah.
Karyakin, Gelfand, even Van Velde. Barev maybe. So some nice wins that year.
Yeah.
And which other year would I pick? 2001, I had a nice win against Piquet. I had this final spurt where I won 3 games against the Dutch Tunnel.
Oh, they call it the Dutch Tunnel. What is the Dutch Tunnel?
Well, it was Timon van Velde Piquet.
Mm-hmm.
But somehow that year they telescoped, so they came one after the other. But,
okay, so that's the Dutch.
And so it was.
Okay, yeah, the Aronian game of
2011. 2011 was a very good score year as well, though I finished second. I had a nice game with Wang Hao, caught him out in a nice trap. I had a good win against Ponamaria, but okay, nothing to write home about that year. And then 18, 19, maybe Mamediaro was a good game. So
it's a couple of good games.
Of course, there are some nice games every year that you play.
But the best one, maybe Aronian, 2013 or not? To
some degree, yes. Though I think the Barev game is also very nice from 2004. The win at Shirov in 2003. The win with Topalov in 1998. There are nice wins, but yeah, Aronian, it's a special game. It's a game you get to. He walks into something, and then the lines are really beautiful, and you finish with Rotlevi Rubinstein. So that's hard to beat.
Hard to beat, yeah, that's right. Are there some? Of course, you also witnessed some other fantastic games which you did not play. But when you're on stage and you see somebody playing a masterpiece like Kasparov, for example, against Topalov, do you realize at the moment when you're on stage, when you're playing yourself, well, there's something going on right there? Something special?
Yes, sometimes people will cluster around, or suddenly there'll be a buzz or excitement in the hall. Everybody is going and watching the game first chance they get. And you get quite so curious. Sometimes you want to abandon your board, go there, have a look and come back. Kasparov Topalov didn't seem to indicate that, but then suddenly Rookie 7 check happened, and then you knew, oh my God, this is going to be special. Mm-hmm. So yes, sorry, Rook takes D4 and then Rookie 7 check. Mm-hmm. So then suddenly you realize, wait, this is going to be different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good. When you're playing a 14, there are not very many tournaments anymore where you have 14 players. How do you maintain your energy during a tournament? Do you have to start slowly and then get better into the tournament, or how do you do it? You cannot keep, I think, the same level for 13 rounds. Is that right? And how do you maintain
Wijk aan Zee is very generous with rest days. You get, they have this 4-4-3-2 schedule in some order. So before it used to be 2-3-4-4, and now it's 4-4-3-2, and whatever 2-3. Sorry, but I think of each section before a rest day as being one group, and this helps. But in the last few years, and obviously it's a trend that has been picking up, because even 2003 and 4, I would remember sitting there at my computer and checking lines, checking this, checking that. Somehow the first year, it really felt like we used to work less in the 80s, much less. But I think already by 98, there's a fair amount of checking, but you could still stop your work and say, well, I'll figure it out at the board. And nowadays it seems to me you need to know the whole line. So, but you do get tired and it takes a toll. But for me, every rest day is a blessing. Because the evening, especially for me, the evening before the rest day is the time, because you can let yourself go. That day, you don't have to do anything. You can go for a long night out. You can come back late. You can go to Amsterdam. You can go to Berwijk, whatever. Take a long walk, just any such thing. And then the next day, you wake up late and you go for a long walk. In fact, around about Spar, if you cut there and you walk, there are these dunes and you can walk over there. That I started exploring a bit more recently. And then you can even start work slowly after lunch at about 3:00. And the rest days I remember as being blissful. But the key to the rest day is not to play a completely messed up game before. So I remember the wins before rest day. Aronian's win was before a rest day. And I can tell you, it's a habit I've had recently that when I play an incredibly good game or a game you're very satisfied with, and you get to the rest day, then you can even relax and indulge yourself a bit. It's not even that I'm getting drunk. I mean, just you feel good about yourself and you let it go. Whereas the absolute nightmare for me was this last year, because I lost a totally winning position against Caruana and then the rest day. But then you kill yourself on the rest day. So sometimes it might even be better to just play right away. But I think on balance, I've won more games before the rest day than lost, so I shouldn't complain.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Does this like I say, also goes on tour, so playing in some other cities in the Netherlands? They started doing that a couple of years ago, so going to Groningen, to Amsterdam to play one game. Does this distract you? Or do you don't mind to do that?
It's part of the public relations of the tournament, I think, to make an impact, and we're not going long enough for the other city to make any sort of impact. I mean, I've been in Eindhoven and Groningen. Groningen, at least we slept there overnight and came back, but it's still, I packed an overnight kit because you didn't have the feeling that this is real. It's just one day thing and you come back, which is fine, but it doesn't feel like anything. I mean, you get back to Wijk and you resume. The other thing is I obviously preferred the rest day after the travel rather than before. But on balance, it's an interesting initiative. You get to play in another city, but it feels like an excursion rather than you actually going to the other city, because you don't have time to do much, especially if you have a long game then.
Yeah, what else do you remember from Wijk aan Zee? The weather, of course. I looked up in 1990. The winds were so harsh and the weather was so bad that you had to move to another venue in the last round. Can you remember that one in 1990? Because it was
raining or something, right? The
raining.
hall was wet.
Yeah, it was wet. The Moriaan, the roof of the Moriaan was so wet and so heavy.
That's
I think
right.
From
the hall was
rain.
Wet, and then we had to move somewhere because they're afraid the roof would collapse or something like that.
Yes. What happened? Do you
remember? Vaguely I remember it, but I didn't remember. I didn't remember it till you mentioned it, and once you mentioned it, suddenly it clicked.
Okay.
So that didn't stay in my head a lot. I remember just that 89 was a glorious year. Maybe, I don't know, you can verify that as well. I'm always amazed when people show me photos of Wijk aan Zee with the trees full of leaves. Because of course I've never seen that. I think you maybe showed us one year, right? And then Arvind Aaron, I think, showed us. Maybe Magnus went there in one summer to hang out for a week or something.
Yeah, you've never been there in the summer?
That's still my dream, to go to Wijk aan Zee once, just to go there without the chess and just even spend an afternoon during spring or summer. But over the years, it just fits into a kind of pattern. Like I said, Amsterdam, Wijk aan Zee, the walks, the routines. In the early years, I would remember Het Lichterink and Hans Ray, when we used to go to the press center after every game. Now, of course, it's just Fiona with a quick video interview and then you're off. But once upon a time, you'd go and hang out at the press center because you would stay in this press center because then you could get the games of the round very easily on a USB stick or something, or a floppy disk, and you could take it back. Whereas nowadays, of course, you can just get it anywhere. Things like that. But I think the years when there was some activity in the press center, and then Richard was there. I forget his last name now, but
Richard de Vega for the Dutch teletext. You mean?
Yeah, teletext.
Yeah,
and that's another institution. I'd go to Amsterdam, then go to some restaurant, And then one of my friends would say, can you give me the teletext, the TV, and then you adjust the teletext, and you would try to see if some round had just finished or stuff like that.
Yeah, they're still doing this.
I think the early years, I enjoyed the press center a lot. It was a good place. Simply, I mean, the dominant impression I have, of course, Hedlik Tereng, Foxkrantz just sitting there. Then Hans Ray would be there. Dirk Jan as well. And there used to be all sorts of press officers. Richard Bottema, of course, good old Tom. And so on, but it's fluctuated. Already for many years, we haven't done that. We have lost this sense of there being a press room. Maybe because there isn't really one anymore. There's just a video room, and then I think the press can even cover it from home. So it almost...
yeah, it's easier. Yeah, but you don't have to go to a wooden demonstration board to show the game anymore. Did you enjoy that, doing that?
Yes, I have photos from 2001 and 98 and all those years where I was showing stuff. And I think also when I was young, it was exciting to be at an important tournament, and I enjoyed it. I have very warm memories of Wijk aan Zee. Obviously, the big tournament in my career.
Yeah.
Linares as well, but less. And Amber slightly more, because I played in Amber over a shorter time frame. I think it's only this year that I've caught up. In Amber, I played 18 times, whereas out of the 20 editions, and this year I hit 20 in Wijk aan Zee, but over a 30-year period. So. Well, I can say is one of the great tournaments of my career. For me, St. Louis and all a much shorter duration. So sure. For me, it was part of the clockwork. Wijk aan Zee, then Linares, then Dos Hermanas, either Amber before or after, more often before. And, there was a kind of rhythm for that you remember. And they used to call it the Wijk Linares Amber crowd. And, it just, you knew the year was starting. You knew it was spring when you got to Monaco. You knew it was pleasant enough in Linares in February, but there was a certain rhythm. And this was part of it. And then Wijk was the sole survivor of this because Linares stopped 10 years ago and Amber stopped a year later. So suddenly there was only this. And I think the fact that the Amber tournament was Dutch, again, reminded me a lot of Wijk aan Zee. It started for me in Wijk aan Zee, but it's part of my Dutch life that Amber was there. Because all the others disappeared. At some point, VSP stopped, 96, after 96. Tilburg stopped 98. Did they have an edition in 99? I think they continued 1 or 2 years, but Tilburg stopped. And then that was it, actually. When I was growing up, Holland was the country to be aimed for. But of course, Hooghovens and Wijk aan Zee and Chorus and Tata Steel is the great survivor. No, it's been going from the 1940s. Yeah, and it's still going strong. So I really, really hope that continues because it is our greatest tradition in chess.
Yeah. Do you?
80 years, whereas every other tradition has been a bit shorter. I remember Tilburg as well very fondly, but a couple of years I played there. But Wijk aan Zee, is the great tournament of my.
Yeah, sure.
Do you think you've been playing there since I was 20 years old?
Yeah, sure. Do you think you will? Okay, will be back maybe for another tournament? Do you hope to?
I hope so. Clearly, this year was too early. It's just we're not ready yet. But hopefully, by next year, if things are normal, why not?
Okay,
it would be very nice and as always.
Yeah, as always. If there's a tournament where if you could travel with a time machine to a tournament and you could go back and relive or replay one more tournament, if I can say, which one would it be?
There are memories associated with everyone, but I think still 89 was very nice. It's nice to come to Amsterdam and have no idea how you're supposed to get to Wijk aan Zee, and then somebody tells you, no, you take the train to Beverwijk. Oh, okay. And then what do I do there? Then you go outside, stand for a bus. Oh, which bus number? Let me write the number down. And then you go like that to, and for the first time you see the Morian, you see everything for the first time. I think that's still special. So it could be nice. I mean, you can believe 20 Miles was playing in that year. So it was... was it the next year?
Miles played.
No, I think 20 Miles was playing in 9.
Yeah, Miles played.
So no, he was playing 89. Sorry, he was playing in 89.
89, 6.5 points.
18.
I just see it here.
Yeah. So I think it's still special. Maybe it was the first time I visited Holland even. I'm trying to remember if I visited Holland before that. I visited Belgium, obviously, for the Swift event in 88. No, it's my first trip to Holland.
Wow, okay.
89, I can say. And yeah, why not? Let's put the time machine for 89.
Time machine 89, okay. So one last question to finish this off. You must have learned some Dutch words. Can you tell me a few, perhaps?
Can
you order? Can you order in Dutch in a restaurant, for example?
Huh?
Can you order in Dutch in a restaurant, for example?
Yeah, sure. I mean, tell me something.
But for example, some chess terminology in Dutch, like checkmate.
Well, of course, loper pard. What's the other one? Loper pard. Toren? No, not toren.
Toren.
Yeah. Toren, yeah, and then dama and damas and hair and all that stuff. Pion, yeah, pion.
Pion.
Then zwart heftetop. Wit heftetop. So that's easy. I even know those two in Russian from reading some books and so on. Shurni Sadalis. But Dutch, I have a reasonable amount. I mean, I have these. The first year, okay, you laugh from this, but the first year I was in Wijk aan Zee, I would see these posters on the bus. Ongewenst zwanger, bel no, and then and some number. So at some point I asked, I don't know, Piquet or Albert, what that meant, and he had a good laugh. I'm sure I remember a lot of words. If you ask me, I'd think. I can recognize most of the menu in Dutch. I can read a menu in Dutch. I mean, knoflook, pepper, because it's close enough to English, and a few things doesn't deviate too far even from German, and so I can order reasonably well in a restaurant. I remember, I think a train is, I remember always Vandenberg telling me about Lubo once he went to this train station. He said, een enkeltje en twee retour naar Roosendaal or something like that. So, I'm sure I know a reasonable amount of words, but I'm not close to speaking the language. But I watched a lot of TV with vertaling, so
subtitles. Yes, that's good. Yes, that's subtitles, so you can learn some Dutch. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and I mean, I used to watch also the old soaps, and after a while, I could turn off the TV and just from the words I would know the conversation. So I got used enough to that.
Okay.
My Dutch isn't too bad comprehension-wise. I don't feel lost there, but Holland is one of these places where, like India, where it's so easy with English that you don't even need to bother.
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Thank you very much, Vishy. Do you have any other final thoughts or some memories or some anecdotes, something funny, for example, for the listeners?
No, I hope we have covered that.
Okay, very good.
Again, no, I think we pretty much covered it. I think the other nice thing, which we didn't talk about too much, was these nice big tents in the big field out there, where these horses are always staggering around. But I don't really have an anecdote of that. It's just part of the scenery.
It's part of the scenery. Yeah, it's unfortunately not a tent anymore. I think they had to cut the tent because of some budget problems, perhaps. But it was always crammed with hundreds and maybe thousands of people watching the commentary of the games. So it was pretty nice scenery. Yes. Correct. Yeah.
I think those were nice when we used to go there and give some commentary after a game and so on.
You had to walk a few hundred.
One of the things I regret that nowadays you just record a short statement on video and you go, that you miss this element. It was nice when a spectator would ask you a question, could you move this in the game? And you actually answer.
Mm-hmm.
And it was clear that neither of you had checked it with the computer. So there was still a possibility of conversation. Whereas nowadays they'd say, the computer says you're winning and so on. Then there's nothing left to discuss. But in those days it was... the press centers were quite an interesting place to find out something.
Yeah. Good. Thank you very much, Vishy. Hope to see you, in Wijk aan Zee next year, perhaps, when you're playing again. Hope everything goes well.
Yes, I hope to come back and see you guys.
Okay. Thank you very much again, and take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.
Dear listeners, I hope you enjoyed this special episode of the podcast. It is always a pleasure to talk to chess legends about their games and experiences, especially when they're talking about my favorite tournament. If you have any questions or suggestions, leave a tweet at Chess Classic or send a mail to talkingchess@gmail.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform. I am your host Erik van Reem. Thank you very much for listening.